The ACC is a mixed bag in week 2 with some good games and some awful games, but we're going to learn a lot about Virginia Tech, Syracuse, Duke, and a few others.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday, and shout out to the everydayers. Thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. He is Kenton Gibbs, former NC State defensive lineman and co-host of Locked On Wolfpack. I am Alex Donno, host of Locked On Canes, and today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is here. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets right now. On this loaded episode, Kenton, we'll talk about statement wins up for grabs because there are some of them here as we look at our ACC Week 2 football preview. Now, you know, the teams you consider to be at the top of the conference don't have good games this weekend. 8th-ranked Clemson is hosting Troy. Clemson Tigers are 31.5-point favorites. 14th-ranked Florida State, fresh off a statement win of their own against Alabama. They host East Texas A&M. There is no spread on that game, so I don't know how much we'll learn about the Seminoles. Same thing with Miami. There is no spread on number 5 Miami's home game against Bethune-Cookman on Saturday, so we're not going to learn a whole lot about those teams, but maybe the one, Kenton, we can start with here, and I did a crossover episode yesterday with Corey Burton from Locked On Vanderbilt. If you look at pressure on Virginia Tech head coach Brent Pry, listen, I'm not saying Vanderbilt would be this like amazing win, but it's an SEC matchup. The point spread, it's virtually a pick 'em at Virginia Tech favored by 1.5. This is a win I believe Virginia Tech absolutely needs at home at night in Blacksburg against a Vandy team that beat them on the road last year. Because Kenton, Virginia Tech, their defense looked pretty solid at times against South Carolina last week, but overall very sloppy on special teams, very sloppy on offense.
Donald, there's 3 categories of games that I like to say. This is like the first category, that's your tier 1 win. That's your big win, right? That's your there were to be a lesser school, like if Duke beats Illinois, that's a tier 1 win. That's like, oh my God, you beat a team that's in the top 15. That's big time for your program. This is not that for Virginia Tech. And then there's your tier 2 wins where it's like, it's run of the mill. It's supposed to happen. You know, not really a big deal. But even if you lost it, we wouldn't be too shocked. It's just kind of a game. This isn't even in that tier. This is in the 3rd tier. This is in that you can't lose, but you shouldn't, or actually, you really can't lose this according to the fans, but in reality, you can lose it, right?
Yeah.
This is where
absolutely.
You're looking at with like an NC State against ECU game 1 this year, where it's like, you can't lose this game according to the fans. But the reality is the discrepancy of talent in between those teams is not that big. I look at this game and I say to myself, like you said, Pry has got that defense rolling. Offensively, what are you going to do? What are you going to – and granted, you're not going to see another Dylan Stewart. That's not going to happen. That kid is phenomenal. I mean, he's going to be at worst, a top 20 pick, so long as he doesn't do anything absolutely insane or have any injury issues or anything like that. He'll be a top 20 pick. Everything holds steady over the next couple years. With that being said, you have to win this game because, like you said, the seat is already starting to get hot. You start off game 1 with a disappointment, and now it's like, well, what else? Where can you go? You can't just use the excuse, we're not SEC and we're not. You can't just beat Virginia and say that that's your season if you're Virginia Tech. This program is much too storied to have that be, hey, that's our ceiling. They've won 19 of the last 20 against UVA. That doesn't really matter. It's not orthogonal to the story of whether or not they had a good season. So I really think that this is a game where the fans are going to say you shouldn't lose this. You got them coming into Blacksburg at night. This should be a crazy environment. The reality may not be the same.
Yeah, I mean, for Virginia Tech in this game, again, like I was pretty pleased at times with their defense, especially their defensive line against South Carolina. Like they did an admirable job against Lenora Sellers. You know, they kept him a little over 200 passing yards and only 25 rushing yards. The challenge obviously shouldn't be as great this week, but Diego Pavia is, he's so old, Kenton. He had to get a special court injunction just to play another season with Vanderbilt. Pavia's got a lot of experience and some big game experience, including, beating Bama last year, which maybe isn't the big game it used to be, but he also beat Virginia Tech head-to-head last year, covering jumbo tight end Eli Stowers. Won't be easy for Virginia Tech, but obviously what we need to see is a better mesh this week between quarterback Kyron Drones and his new offensive coordinator, Philip Montgomery, because it didn't really look like they're necessarily the best fit. Obviously, Drones threw 2 interceptions. One of them, the one in the end zone, was especially egregious. Like, he's got to clean that up, but we know he's got the rocket arm and all the talent, and we need to see better on special teams. The legacy of Frank Beamer is getting soiled when you've got, punt returns going for touchdowns against Virginia Tech. That stuff always used to go the other way. We can't have any more of that this week.
Beamer ball was on the other sideline, Donno. That was the problem. That was the problem. And even beyond that, you're absolutely right. It's jarring with Kyron Drones because the talent is there. He has those moments where he just turns into an absolute demon, and you're like, oh, he's it. He's one of those ones. And then 2 plays later, he'll have a throw like that interception in the end zone where you're just like, walk me through this. What were you looking at? What was the read? How did we get there? How did we deliver the pass in that way? So it's so infuriating because it's not like an Anthony Richardson situation where you just keep banking on this talent that, appears every now and then, but for the most part, he can't do the little things at quarterback because even with the little things, Kyron Drones has shown improvement. It's just putting together a full game, putting together that full package. He puts together a pretty good game, but then he has that moment or two that kills you, and it's like, man, that's tough. And then, like you said, a new offensive coordinator, new running back, new, wide receiving core mostly being replaced as well. It's a tough situation. But if you're going to be one of those guys, if you're going to be a first rounder, if you're going to be all these things that is going to make you one of the richest men in America one day, you have to do it. I'm sorry, Kyron. It is, in the words of one Kendrick Duckworth, I'll be on it behind. Somebody got to do it. That's your job. Somebody has to do it, Kyron. It has to be you.
So while ACC versus SEC matchups are always nice, even when it's Vandy against Virginia Tech, there is an ACC versus Big Ten opportunity this Saturday that really has me excited. So, Kenton, we got the Duke Blue Devils at home, 2.5-point underdogs against the 11th ranked Fighting Illini. And I guess let's start here for keys for Duke. Before we get to their offense, this is a game where Manny Diaz is really going to try to lean on his defense, specifically his pass rush against Luke Altmaier of Illinois. That if they can make his life difficult as a Manny Diaz defense with all the blitzes and all the disguising, if they can do what we believe they're capable of, that's going to give them their shot. Before we even get to Darian Mensah in that offense, the defense needs to step up on Saturday.
I 100% agree, but I think that there's a different part of the defense that needs to be looked out for here. And I think that that's the front 7 in terms of the linebackers and the defensive line, because I don't care how good your quarterback is. If Brett Bielema is your head coach, get ready. It's going to be physical. It's going to be it's going to be a whole lot of offensive line. It's going to be a whole lot of heavy sets. It's going to be a whole lot of 6 and 7 offensive lineman sets, because that's who Brett Bielema is, and that's what had success for him. I look at this game and I say to myself, I know that this sounds cliche. The winner of the line of scrimmage will win this game. I think Altmaier is a good quarterback. I think Mensah's a good quarterback. I don't think either one of them are good enough to overcome losing up front. I don't think either one of them are that level of talent. And I don't think that Darian Mensah has that type of repertoire built up with his pass catchers yet, as we saw by the fact that Elon was right there in that game until late in the second half, right? So I don't want to say like, hey, going back to Duke's defense here with Altmaier, even last week, it wasn't like he was absolutely asked to light it up and be the guy. And, that was a performance, a dominant performance over Western Illinois, where with Brett Bielema, the run is always going to set the table. Okay,
Yeah.
the run is like Jeffrey the Butler from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. He is always there with the one-liners, with the everything you need, with the bringing the car around, with the pool being cleaned out. It's always there for Brett Bielema. And the reality is, if you want to beat a Brett Bielema coach team, whether they're at Illinois, whether they're at Wisconsin, whether they're at Arkansas, it does not matter. You have to stop the run and then go have some fun.
All right. So on the other side, let's talk about how much we trust Duke's offense to live up to that end of the billing. And I also want to get into Syracuse versus UConn, like not as big as some of these other games, but Syracuse needs to show us a certain something that they were lacking a week ago against the Tennessee Volunteers. You want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. Oh, my friends, it's almost the weekend. It's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For the Florida State Seminoles, Thomas Castellanos delivered in a big way against Alabama last week, backing up all of that offseason trash talk. Right? From Miami, you had Ruben Hurricane Bain delivering. When the pressure was on, Castellanos and Bain, they came through, no hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, you'll know these performances probably will not be flukes throughout the season. These players are going on a streak. And just like they delivered, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season long, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period goes through November 18th. Folks, we're also proudly brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who choose to do more than simply move. They follow what moves them every time they drive. That's what makes Mazda stand out. They go beyond safety, style, and performance to deliver a driving experience that feels alive in every detail. Guys, if you're an athlete, you focus on every detail, and Mazda does the same. From metallic accents to hand-stitched Napa leather, you can feel it the moment you get behind the wheel. The smooth handling, intuitive controls, standard all-wheel drive on every crossover SUV. Whether it's a quick drive to practice or a weekend road trip, Mazda makes even everyday drives feel special. It's the small details that make the big plays. And just like there's more to every player, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen. Make sure you check out our other shows for your next listen. Kenton Gibbs and Grayson Boone host Locked On Wolfpack, talking all things NC State. NC State also has a matchup this weekend, just in conference, but not really in conference. We'll talk about that. I host Locked On Canes, talking everything Miami. All right, so, Kenton, you mentioned it. Like, I know Duke ended up blowing out Elon because their athletes and their depth pulled away in the second half. And, if you look at the Darian Mensah stat line, he ended up with 389 passing yards, but it wasn't trending that way for most of the game. Again, Duke pulled ahead late. So where are you at with Duke's offense? And do you think now Darian Mensah, after having that start and that warm up under his belt with a new team, is going to start firing from the first quarter on, not from the third quarter on this week?
I mean, I think the thing that a lot of people need to realize is, of those 45 points that Duke put up, 35 of them were in the second half. Here's why that's problematic to me. Whenever you're playing an FCS team, they do not have as many scholarship players on their roster, period. That's just a fact. That's just a fact. They do not have the same amount of players who can meaningfully go out and contribute into a game. Why is that important? When do you think that shows up? In the second half. When players are tired and Duke can say, you know what, we've got a third string guy. He may be an accountant in a few years, but he's a high level athlete compared to this guy that's playing at Elon, that's worn out from basically being in the game for the entire game so far. So I'm in a wait and see phase with Darian Mensah in this offense. Duke's defense, I have a lot less questions about. The offense, however, it feels strange to say, but the offense is going to need to keep pace with Altmaier. The offense is going to need to keep pace with Illinois' rushing attack, which is always going to be multi-pronged because, again, that's just who Brett Bielema is. So I'm looking at that aspect of it saying, Can Duke keep up offensively? If they can, I think they'll be just fine. And don't get me wrong, I don't expect this game to be a barn burner. I don't expect it to be a 35, 38, 42, 45. I don't expect it to be anything like that. I expect this to be much more in that 27, 24, 20 to 17 type of range. But the question is, can you put up 20 to 28 points against an FBS, not only FBS, a power four, not only power four, a top 15 in the power four-ish defense?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they
11,
can,
yeah.
but exactly, but we'll see.
Yeah, so just I'm picking Illinois to win this game, and I think the running game is going to have a lot to do with it. So I've got Illinois edging out Duke in Durham. But to go back, because I don't think we gave our picks for the first game we talked about, I do have Virginia Tech edging out Vandy, and a big part of that is those night games in Blacksburg. They hit different. If that was a 3:30 game or a noon game, I would feel less confident. 7:30 p.m. Enter Sandman. I'm going to go with Virginia Tech. Probably a close-ish game against Vandy, and I'll go with Illinois, probably in a low-scoring game, with the running game being the difference against Duke. What do you think?
Yeah, in terms of these two games, I'm going to go against you. I've got Vanderbilt winning a close one against Virginia Tech, only because as much as I like Virginia Tech, they just feel like they're going to have those couple of moments where you just are going to have your hands in your head if you're a fan of Blacksburg saying, why? What happened? How did we get here? That's very worrisome. And for the Illinois and Duke game, we agree on that one. I have Illinois winning as well. I've got Illinois winning by 10. I've got this one being I want to say 24-14 Illinois, because I think that Duke figures out and starts to get the offense rolling late, but by then the game's already over and Illinois is already kind of pounding them into submission.
I like it. All right. So what are you thinking for Syracuse hosting UConn? Like this should be a bounce back win, Kenton, and I do think Syracuse is going to pull it out in the Dome against UConn. But there were some causes for concern for Syracuse against Tennessee. Now, again, going up against an opponent that was supposed to beat them, and the Volunteers got the job done. But while Syracuse's offense showed me, hey, Angeli can run that, even losing some playmakers from last year, this team looks like they can score some points on just about anybody. But I really worry about Syracuse's defense. And if you're not careful, UConn has some players that can hurt you. Their top running back, Cam Edwards, averaged 19.2 yards per carry last week against a lesser opponent, but he can be dangerous. Receiver Skylar Bell on the UConn side, same thing. So, I mean, I think we're going to find out how much Syracuse's defense is fixed from last week, and maybe how much of that was going up against an SEC opponent, because UConn can hurt you on offense if you're not careful.
Last week, Syracuse played defense. There was no D involved in that one, okay? There was no D in that defense whatsoever. It was very, very shameful in terms of how Tennessee was allowed to run up and down the field all day on them. However, like you said, the UConn Huskies are not the Tennessee Volunteers. That is two very different levels of talent. I've got Syracuse winning this one comfortably. I think they win this one comfortably, and we kind of go on from there. So I'll say I'm with you on this one. Syracuse wins and Syracuse covers.
Yeah, they're favored by 6.5 points. I think they'll cover. I think they'll win by like 13 to 17 points, something like that. So I think they'll cover a 6.5 pretty comfortably, in my opinion. Okay, Kenton, we have for your NC State Wolfpack an ACC matchup that does not count in the conference standings. You already explained to us earlier this week why that is. But NC State at home, favored by 4.5 against Virginia. I'm also tempted to bet NC State to cover that 4.5. Am I right, or do you want to talk me out of that?
Wrong team favorite. This is a game where, as an NC State guy, I would like to believe, I would like to say, hey, this NC State team is going to absolutely lay it on thick against UVA. My problem is fighters don't make fights, styles make fights. Same thing for football. The thing that concerns me is Chandler Morris seems to have already found something with one of his wide receivers. his name eludes me right now, but Mr. Cooks, the one who was the ACC receiver of the weekend, special teams player of the week.
Special teams, yeah.
It concerns me because NC State did their best, did their absolute best to make sure that the top was not taken off by ECU, and yet there were still plays where you saw guys like Anthony Smith and company streaking down the field open. Their quarterback just couldn't hit them. Chandler Morris ain't gonna miss those
Cam
shots.
Ross, right, is the player?
Yes, Cam Ross. I'm sorry, Cam Ross, not Cooks. Cam Ross. Yes, I don't think that Chandler Morris misses Cam Ross if he's streaking wide open down the field. I don't think that happens. And so, my biggest belief here, NC State jumps out to a lead, but they go back into that shell of conservatism that they always do, and they end up losing this game. And the thing is, I want to believe that NC State wins this game. NC State on paper is the better team. I think if NC State had that killer mentality in them, I would be comfortable saying they win this game by double digits. The problem is we have seen it time and time and time again. It is a tale as old as time with Dave Doeren coach teams. And I know, because I played for multiple Dave Doeren coach teams, that even when you get a good lead, it's like, we'll rest on our laurels. And unless you fully tap out in no mas, we're not going to make you no mas, which he has done at times in his tenure. It just hasn't been the case overall. I truly hope I'm wrong here, but I've got Virginia pulling out a close one because I believe NC State will go into a shell too early.
All right, we got more games to pick on the other side, including Boston College against a Big Ten opponent this weekend. We'll continue. You want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. Hey, Locked On ACC fans, you still paying full price for gas? Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. Use my limited time promo code FOOTBALL and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You can make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas you already needed. At first, I thought it was too good to be true, but it's totally legit. Real people are getting paid just to make their daily commutes, and now you can too. Plus, you can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app now using my limited time promo code FOOTBALL for a limited time 25 cent per gallon bonus. That's promo code FOOTBALL. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. My friends, football is back. College football's in full swing. We just had the NFL opener, Eagles edging out the Cowboys the other night. We got Sunday games coming up. FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, I had a bunch of those on Thursday night, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Thank you for making Locked On ACC your first listen. All right, so we've already picked a few of these games. Now I'm still I'm picking NC State to win straight up. Are you picking Virginia to win the game straight up, or how are you looking at that?
I'm picking Virginia to cover, and I'm picking Virginia to win straight up. Obviously, if I'm picking them to win straight up, I'm picking them to cover. But you get the point. Yeah, I'm picking them to win straight up because again, I have lost a lot of faith in this NC State team's ability to just put teams away. Doeren talked all offseason about not leaving meat on the bone, and yet I saw some wings that had so much meat on them they get kicked out of the Levert family cookout. Okay, that's what I saw against ECU. So I think that UVA pulls out a close one here.
All right. So what about Boston College on the road in East Lansing at Michigan State? Michigan State favored by 4.5 points. I mean, Boston College opened up the season against Fordham, so we didn't really learn much last week. It was a good debut for their new quarterback, Dylan Lonergan. But again, against Fordham, he threw 4 touchdown passes, 268 yards. I didn't learn anything about BC. You know, I do know that NC State, I think, is trending upwards under Jonathan Smith. So I would tend to lean to NC State winning and covering the -4.5. Or is anything you may have seen against Fordham that makes you think Boston College pulls this off on the road?
So here's the thing. I struggle to say that Boston College is going to pull this one off. But here's what I will say more than anything else. When I look at this Michigan State team, Aiden Child is supposed to be the star of the show. Well, where's the starring? If you're supposed to be the guy, be the guy. With Boston College, there's a bit of that unpredictability in terms of you don't really have a designated, like, hey, this is the guy, this is how we're going to get these wins, as opposed to Michigan State, which is supposed to be led by this quarterback who has all the tools and the talent. It just another guy that just struggles to produce here. I think that Michigan State wins, but I think Boston College covers. You know, at the end of the day, what, 4.5 points? They say that being at home is worth 3. So I'd say when I look at this thing, I think Boston College covers. I think Michigan State wins, but don't be surprised if the old Golden Eagles are pulling out of East Lansing with a win there.
All right, so let's look at I mean, you tell me if anything stands out about these other games, because most of them are heavy favorites. You know, Louisville, 14.5-point favorites at home against James Madison, which is, you know, not terrible compared to a lot of these other ACC opponents. I mean, do you think can JMU pull off a shocker with Louisville favored by just over 2 ties? I don't think so either. I can see you shaking your head. No,
sir.
No, sir.
No, that's not happening. Louisville is too physical, too good up front. And I'm going to tell you, every time I watch Isaac Brown play, I say the running back resurgence is here. What's going on, Air Raid boy? You're afraid you might have to establish the run? That meme comes to mind every time I watch Isaac Brown run the ball, because that man, he does it well. He does it at a high clip. I think that they get this job done fairly easy.
I mean, Miami hosts Bethune-Cookman, the FCS team. There's no spread on that game. Like, there's no conversation to even have. We'll move on. I mean,
that team couldn't even get Miami alum Ed Reed to be their coach because of too many shenanigans going on at that program.
Yeah.
With all due respect to Bethune-Cookman, it's too much shenanigans going on. There's no way they win this game. There's no way they keep this game within 30.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing, I mean, obviously I host Locked On Canes and I cover Miami. I'm just like thinking about, like, can we get like 85 different players on the field? Like, can we get the second, third, and fourth stringers and see how these guys do? That's the conversation you have about a game like that. I'm sure the same conversations are being had in Tallahassee. 14th ranked Florida State hosts East Texas A&M. There is no spread on that game either. But here's one that we probably could have devoted more time to. 17th ranked SMU hosting Baylor as 2.5-point favorites. Now, we weren't wowed by SMU against lesser opposition last week. I also wasn't really wowed by Baylor against Auburn. They kept it close early. They played, a legitimate opponent last week. But I think SMU is going to take care of business at home. I think it could be a close game, though.
Yeah, this is one of those inter-Texas rivalries that, we see a lot in the Texas religious schools, too. They really hate each other. And I think that this is a game that, I don't know what it is. Texas Christian, Southern Methodist, Baylor, all those schools, they really don't like each other. And I think that Kevin Jennings and company lay the lumber in this one. I think Dave Doeren is a fantastic coach. I think Rhett Lashley is a better coach. I think that defense looked really good in game one. I think they'll look good again against Baylor. Give me SMU.
All right, so we also we have Pittsburgh hosting Central Michigan. Pittsburgh is favored by 21.5 points. I think we know how that one's going to go. Wake Forest against Western Carolina. Even for whoever Wake Forest is, there's no spread on that game, so Western Carolina must be really bad.
Yeah, the Catamounts of Western Carolina aren't bringing much to the party. But I will say this: beware if you got that if you have that Wake Forest team winning by 30 or something like that, or if you did find a sicko book that would give you
I'm going to look for it. I'm going to look for it. Yeah.
Be warned. If that thing is about 30 some odd points, I'm not sure. After seeing what I saw against Kennesaw State, I'm not sure that this team has the capability of scoring 40 points, 35 points at all against a legitimate college team, which Western Carolina may be FCS. They're not a terrible FCS team. They're not the type of FCS team where you're like, are they going to exist in a year? They're not that type of FCS. So I'd say Wake Forest wins, obviously, but don't place no bet on a 28-point spread there. Don't do it.
Yeah, I'm going to look for a spread. And if I can find one somewhere, like I'm going to look for like the offshores. If I can find like a 30+ point spread, I'm going to hammer Western Carolina. You already know.
I'm mad at you.
Yeah. All right. So then we got 8th ranked Clemson against Troy. Clemson is favored by 31.5. We know how that one's going to go. Clemson's going to get the bounce back win that they needed after the LSU game. Georgia Tech hosting Gardner-Webb. There's no spread on that game. Now, we're going to talk a lot more Georgia Tech next week because they got Clemson in week 3, I believe. So we're going to talk a lot more about them. And that was a nice win they had week 1 against Colorado. Cal is hosting Texas Southern. There's no spread on that game either. Now, okay, how about this one? North Carolina are favored by 13.5 points against Charlotte. A game they should win, but I don't know if I can say North Carolina should win against anybody after what I saw last week.
So here's the deal, right? I think that North Carolina wins this game and they cover only because Charlotte is a mess right now. They were left decimated by the Biff Poggi era. Anybody from the DMV area got an offer to go to UNC Charlotte, and they've had to clean up a ton in his absence and him going back to Michigan to be the associate head coach. With all due respect, I think that Charlotte team is as devoid of talent as you will see in the FBS arena. And therefore, I think that North Carolina does win and does cover. But again, that's because that's a FBS team that I look at and I'm like, if they were FCS 2 years from now, would I be shocked? No, I would not say the Charlotte 49ers slid back down. Couldn't be. It would make a lot of logical sense.
All right, so then rounding out the week, I think the only other game we haven't mentioned is Stanford on the road at BYU. Cougars are favored by 20.5 points. Stanford isn't winning this game, Kenton. They're not. If they can keep it within 21 points, I'll be happy.
BYU wins. Stanford gets a bad beat. Yeah. They get a back door. They're down 25 or so and score a touchdown late to create an 18-pointer bad beat. Yeah. You heard it here first, folks. Okay. I think Stanford gets it done. BYU is immensely better than them, but I feel like the surge and the call this week is just going to be just play a clean game. And I think a clean game with their lack of talent still leaves them about 25 to 28 points behind them. If you're 28 points behind late, that last touchdown won't matter. You're still not beating that 20 and a half. But if you're 25 points down, now some interesting things just happened in Vegas. Interesting things could be happening. So I think they get a bad beat their way into an 18-point loss, but no, they do not win this game.
I like the way you think, though. All right, that's our week 2 preview. We'll see if we were terribly wrong about anything on Monday. He is Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack. Make sure you follow him at TGIF_Kenton. Follow me at Alex Donno and check me out on Locked On Canes as well. And we'll talk to you next time on another episode of Locked On ACC. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.